Knowledge is power. It's a true saying, and in Total War Warhammer, perhaps there isn't a unit that this applies to more than dragons. Used incorrectly, they can be a huge economic waste and a massive disappointment, yet used correctly, they can be one of your faction's most decisive tools, and today we're going to run from beginner tips to advanced tricks to ensure your dragons deliver. Welcome to Elven Plot Armor, and this is the Dragon Mastery Guide. Just to clarify, this will be predominantly regarding the battlefield, as there isn't too much to say about the campaign map except that dragons are typically a tier 5 late game option, but my guides are campaign centric, so the advice is purely here for AI battles where you will face traditional formations without a human player trying to snipe or derp out your units. The concepts discussed here are essentially the same, and much of this can be applied to all flying units, except they don't all have breath attacks, but about half the races in the game have some form of dragon option, so it's worth being brought up to speed, and we will also have a section at the end on how to effectively kill them if you are a non-dragon faction. So let's have a look at the pros and cons of the dragon unit type. Well, the pros are, of course, the breath attacks, if well placed, can be decisive. They require dedication of the enemy's missiles to be able to shoot down, and finally, they have a charge which packs a massive punch due to their large mass and terror. The cons attached to each of these pros are the usability of breath attacks requires skill, micromanagement, and opportunity. Their large mass means that it's hard to avoid missiles and they can soak up a lot of damage. And lastly, when charging into ground units, they can get pinned on the ground and surrounded and have difficulty getting off. So straight away we can see that this is not a point and click unit, and you need to capitalize on each of the strengths while simultaneously managing each of the weaknesses. And to deep dive into this, I've split this video up into segments, detailing what your dragon should be doing at various stages of the battle. Starting with positioning. If you've seen my formations masterclass, these beasts would fall under a flanking category, and they should be deployed at the wings to be able to pick their engagements for breath attacks and cycle charging. So just to make crystal clear, do not send your dragon up in a straight line towards the enemy. I'm not sure what novel has bulletproof dragons, but clear any of those preconceptions. See them for what they are. A fire-breathing bat lizard that needs to avoid being swarmed and avoid its wings being shredded by missiles. This is not a frontline tank and more of a satanic piece of cavalry that should be situated on the flanks. And if you do fly up ahead, try to approach the enemy from the sides, out of range of the archers and any missile cavalry. The dragon is a tool of patient yet decisive moves, and sitting back waiting for the correct opportunity can be far more valuable than jumping at every first chance. Just remember, in order to react quickly, your dragon should be facing the potential target, so just make sure you finish your movement facing the enemy. And that takes us to our second section, which is of course movement, and this is one of the biggest areas of disaster that I see and has led to the loss of many a dragon's life on their first day of duty. The biggest strengths of a dragon are its breath attack and the fact it charges like a truck. Its biggest weakness is that it is the size of a truck, so flying in a straight line only gives the enemy the world's largest clay pigeon to shoot at, and it's not a very fast clay pigeon, so whether flying away or towards an enemy, make sure you bank the dragon from side to side. 3 clicks one way, then 3 quick clicks the other way. Going from left to right tilts the dragon, making it raise one wing up and then dipping under the arrow fire, moving its large wings out of the way. This doesn't strictly mean this is the only way that you should weave. Sometimes when you see a large cluster or volley coming your way, it might even be better to actually tilt towards the enemy, banking back the way you came to allow the arrows to fly over you before whipping the dragon forward again, and then returning to the 3 clicks left, 3 clicks right, and you should get safe out of range that way. So I'll mention here as well, hotkey your dragons. Unless you are super quick with that reflex bar down the bottom, it is always handy to be able to double tap a quick number to find your dragon being shot at and start moving him. And if he is being shot at, do not turn around or pivot on the spot. This gives enemy archers the world's largest disco ball which sits there rotating to be shot at. Instead, fly forward and then start to bank around. The next section is breath, the signature ability and their most devastating, but it's also their most complex. Most dragons get 3 breath attacks per battle with a cooldown in between, and I cannot stress enough, correct use of some breath attacks is essential in dragons earning their value back on the battlefield. Different dragon breaths will vary slightly, but they all unleash 15 small projectiles in a small strip vertically in front of them. By selecting a target, you'll see a blue disc representing the center of said strip, and for this reason, attacking a wide unit front on is a complete waste because the length of the breath will largely pass behind the target. So targeting a stationary unit on the side will see the greatest and largest impact. However, this isn't as easy as it sounds, as dragons are unable to calibrate their breath against moving targets, so aiming at a line of running infantry will result in the breath hitting behind them. And I'll quickly add, there are some super fun and interesting tricks you can do by deliberately letting the trail of fire go behind your original target to hit a larger cluster behind them, but this absolutely is a trick shot and can be compounded by other issues like terrain, and the best use is to find a unit that is engaged with one of yours, line up the shot and deliver. An enemy infantry unit that's piled up against one of yours is a great target, allowing you the time to line up your shot and maximize your damage. Quite similar, using a lord or a singular hero to blob up the enemy around them is another opportunity that can deliver great results. Archers, on the other hand, are much harder to deal with because they will often turn to face to return fire, meaning that the shot will go straight through them, denying them the side-on shot that they are after. However, if the archers are already engaged in a target, you can often fly the dragon over and then deliver a breath attack and destroy the unit that way. If at any point you want to cancel a breath attack, just simply click in a different direction and get the dragon to keep flying, which is definitely recommended if you believe the shot will miss or be lackluster. Landing a good shot can be very difficult, and that's because the horizontal angle is only half of the equation. The vertical distance, meaning how far away the dragon is from the target, will also influence how short or long the track of fire will be, meaning if a dragon is right above a target aiming straight down, it will deliver a small concentrated area of breath rather than doing a nice long track if it is at maximum distance. So yes, that means if you typically want to maximize your breath coverage against an infantry formation, then you want to be side on and as far away as possible. And while this will see devastating results versus infantry, this is only one type of breath attack against one type of target, and the type of breath depends on the dragon it's coming from. For example, the High Elves Sun Dragon has the longest breath area of 35, but its damage of 77 only has 22 armor piercing, so this means this breath will absolutely incinerate large blobs of low-level infantry. Now let's compare this to the more physically impressive Moon Dragon, which has a significantly smaller area of 25 versus the Sun Dragon's 35, but the Moon Dragon boasts 109 damage, of which 41 is armor piercing, almost double that of the Sun Dragon. So even at maximum range, this is going to impact less units, however, it will actually deal damage to high armor units, i.e. targets that the flames of the Sun Dragon would just drift past. Finally, let's look at the Star Dragon, the most physically impressive on the High Elf roster, but it only has an area of 12, barely a third of the Sun Dragon. It has 82 damage, but that carries 50 armor piercing. Now, this small area actually acts in the favor of the Star Dragon, where the Moon Dragon is really ideal for taking out small groups of high armor elite infantry. The Star Dragon really excels at attacking large monstrous creatures or even characters. This doesn't mean you're not going to use your Star Dragon at maximum range, because you will, and against the highest armor infantry, you will do a small blob of damage, but absolutely melt the high tier units underneath. In the event the Star Dragon is targeting a single entity, this is where flying directly above the target can really deliver, ensuring that all 15 of the projectiles pile directly onto the target, pile driving them into the ground and then resulting in massive damage. I'll note here, this is high risk, high reward, so make sure the target is being held in place in combat before attempting this. So in general, a longer strip of dragon fire is better, but for the small instances where you want to direct your damage squarely onto a single target, then directly above is where you want to be. But before we carry on, there's one more instance where we commonly see soldiers already lined up in straight lines, unable to move. Can you guess where that is? Sieges. Siege walls are absolute gold mines for amazing breath attacks, and until they fix the siege AI in Warhammer 3, this is excellent target practice. Here you can really see the impact of managing your distance and the angle correctly so the flames will pour over the top floor and to the one below it. This same concept carries across to uneven terrain, in the way that shooting a breath attack downhill at a target is going to extend the range, and conversely, shooting at a target running uphill will result in a lower track of damage. charge. Whether your breath attack finds its mark or completely misses, you will have to either choose to move away as previously explained, or you can do our final section here, cycle charge. Once again, dragons are not tanks or lumbering airships. Think of them as fierce fire-breathing cavalry. I mean, look at these stats. High melee attack and charge bonus, and melee defense that's typically a bit lower, but these stats indicate they are designed to dive in for just under 10 seconds ideally, and then take off again for another breath attack and maybe subsequent charge. Given their inherent terror, charging into the rear of a formation can often be the decisive moment where they break. Just make sure that you select targets that are isolated which allow your dragon to escape, because getting off the ground can be quite tricky if the dragon is being poked by javelins and having its wings torn at. To get off the ground is pretty much the same as actually avoiding missiles in the way that you click 3 times to the left and right persistently until your dragon makes enough room to muscle its way out and then ultimately take off. For the best results, shake your way out of the formation quickly and then keep wiggling in the direction away from the infantry. Being able to escape back to the air easily really comes down to having chosen a really good target to start off with, so do not charge into the middle of combat. This is the other most common cause of dragon mortality. While a dragon will win most 1v1 engagements, the dragon's side and rear will definitely be exposed, and any blows to the side or rear of the dragon will attract a 40% or 70% reduction in melee defense. So that's a lot of damage that's going to hit your dragon, so do not get surrounded, and make sure you avoid halberds and other anti-large users like the plague, as they will humble your dragon quite quickly. So pick a charge area of easy exit where you won't receive a counter charge, and keep in mind that over a 13-second period, the charge bonus will whittle down to a gradual 0 benefit, so getting them back in the air after a short charge, but keep in mind the terror and attacking in the flank will really damage their morale, and breaking a unit can be just as useful. Then just get back in the air and line up your next breath attack. I'd like to advise to people that are maybe newer at the game or newer using dragons, or even just a bit uncomfortable with micro, all these things will come with time, and possibly consider not cycle charging in unless it's a really obvious opportunity, because this does create another layer of micro, and honestly learning to nail your breath attacks is probably a higher priority unless you can see that charge will really decisively break a unit and turn the battle in your favor. And now our final section, the easiest way to kill dragons. Now I'm going to spoil this for you, but if you have access to gunpowder, this will do the job. And while archers will do the same, bullets are just simply harder to avoid and will shred through the dragon scales. If you've seen my previous guides or formations video, you'll know that if you have any ranged units, always have guard mode on so they don't chase after, and have skirmish mode off so they don't run away and lose formation. Using these two options in conjunction with good spacing between your missile units will typically be enough. Just remember, Control M will select all your missiles if a dragon does dive into your ranks, so you can focus them down rather quickly while they're immobile. At this point, feel free to send any anti-large units on your backline into the dragon, and keep in mind if you have flying anti-large cavalry, try and hit them in the rear, capitalizing on that negative 70 melee defense that's quite easy to expose on such a large creature. So to summarize, your dragons in a standard battle should do the following: be quick numbered, hold shift to draw lines that encompass movement and evasion, and always flick the line in the direction to face the threat. Wait for the correct opportunity and land a devastating breath attack. You can choose to add a rear charge on an isolated unit for a few seconds before flying away to safety, and remember to weave while under fire and on the ground to get yourself back to safety. And rinse and repeat, that's it. Not only will this hopefully help you get more out of your dragons to help kill dragons, but also there's some good concepts in here if you are unaware that you can really apply to any flying unit in general. And even if you learned absolutely nothing, I really hope you found it entertaining, and if you might consider giving the video a like or subscribing for weekly content, we've got plenty upcoming here. Please feel free to share any questions or comments. I reply and appreciate everything, and this is Elven Plot Armor, and I will see you next time. Cheers.